I want to tell you about the moment I stopped believing in safety. It wasn't a dramatic event. There was no screaming, no blood, no monster with claws. It was a Tuesday evening. I was washing dishes, and the radio in my kitchen, which I always kept on low for background noise, started to crackle. Not the normal static, but something else. Something that sounded almost like breathing. I froze, soapy water dripping from my fingers, and I listened. The breathing was slow, wet, and it was coming from the speaker. I told myself it was interference. I told myself it was my imagination. But deep down, in that primal part of my brain that evolution never quite turned off, I knew the truth. I was not alone in my apartment, and whatever was there, it had just found a way to speak to me. Before I go any further, I need you to do something for me. If you have ever felt that cold knot in your stomach when you're home alone, that inexplicable urge to turn around and check an empty hallway, then you already understand what I'm about to share with you. That feeling is not paranoia. It is a survival instinct, and it is screaming at you for a reason. This channel exists to explore those shadows, to give voice to the things that hide in the quiet corners of your life. So please take a moment right now and hit that subscribe button. Join this community of people who, like you, know that the world is a much stranger and more terrifying place than most are willing to admit. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. Now, let me tell you about the radio. It started innocently enough. I bought that old analog radio from a thrift store downtown. It was a beautiful vintage piece, all wood and brass dials, and it cost me next to nothing. I loved the way it looked on my kitchen counter, a touch of nostalgia in my otherwise modern apartment. For weeks, it worked perfectly. I'd listen to jazz in the mornings, classical in the evenings. It was comforting, that constant low hum of human sound filling the empty spaces of my small home. But then the sounds began to change. At first, it was subtle. I'd be reading on the couch, and the music would seem to warp, the notes stretching into something discordant and wrong. The jazz would morph into a dissonant wail, the classical into a funeral dirge. I'd look at the dial, and the frequency would be the same. It was as if the radio wasn't playing the music anymore, but something that was pretending to be music. Something that didn't quite understand human emotion. Then came the whispers. They were faint at first, barely audible beneath the crackle. I'd lean closer, straining to hear, and I'd catch fragments of words. My name, Ilara, but spoken with a cold, flat inflection that made my skin crawl. It wasn't a question, it wasn't a greeting. It was a statement, an acknowledgement. Ilara, it would say, and then go silent. I started to dread going into the kitchen. I'd make my coffee quickly, my eyes fixed on that radio, waiting for it to speak. I tried unplugging it, but the whispers continued. They would come from the speaker even when the power was off, a soft, sibilant hiss that seemed to emanate from the very wood itself. I threw the radio in the trash. I took the garbage out that very night, watching the bin men collect it the next morning. I felt a wave of relief, a release of tension I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I thought it was over. I thought I had won. I was so naive. 3 days later, I came home from work. I kicked off my shoes, slumped onto the couch, and reached for the remote to turn on the TV. The television flickered to life, and I froze. The channels were scrolling by themselves, faster and faster, a blur of static and noise. And then it stopped. On the screen was a single image. It was a grainy, black and white picture of my kitchen. And in the center of the frame, sitting on the counter, was the radio. The very same radio I had thrown away. It was back. The thing in the static had brought it back. It wanted me to know that I could not throw it away. I could not escape it. It was part of my home now. Let me share with you 3 terrifying truths I learned from this experience. 3 things that will change how you listen to the silence in your own home. First, horror adapts. It doesn't follow your rules, it changes the game. When I unplugged the radio, it found a way to speak through the silence. When I threw it away, it used my television. It will always find a new channel, a new medium, a new way to reach you. It is relentless, it is patient, and it learns from you. Second, the things we love become weapons against us. I love that radio. It was an object of beauty and comfort in my home. And that's exactly why it was chosen. The horror uses your own sanctuary, your own belongings, to violate your sense of safety. Your phone, your smart speaker, your television, the very walls of your home. They are all potential conduits. The most terrifying invasion is the one that happens in the place you feel safest. And third, the most horrifying sound in the world is not a scream. It is silence. It is the absence of noise where there should be sound. It is the moment your radio stops crackling, your television goes black, and the entire world holds its breath. That silence is not empty. It is waiting. It is listening. And it is far more terrifying than any scream could ever be. The final night, I was lying in bed, unable to sleep. The apartment was silent. Too silent. There was no hum of the refrigerator, no distant traffic, no creaking pipe. It was a perfect, unnatural vacuum of sound. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding against my ribs. And then I heard it. It wasn't coming from the radio or the television. It was coming from my wardrobe. A soft, rhythmic thumping, like a heartbeat. But it was too slow, too deliberate. Thump, pause, thump, pause. The pause was agonizing. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just lay there, paralyzed, listening to that sound. I don't know how long I lay there. It felt like hours. The thumping continued, and then, incredibly, it started to synchronize with my own heartbeat. My heart would beat, and a split second later, the wardrobe would answer. It was echoing me, imitating me, mocking me. And then, the wardrobe door began to open. It opened slowly, inch by excruciating inch, a sliver of darkness growing wider. I could see nothing inside, just an abyss so black it seemed to swallow the faint light from my window. But I knew something was there. I could feel it looking at me. A cold, malevolent presence that poured out of that open door and filled my room like ice water. I squeezed my eyes shut, a childish instinct, as if not seeing it would make it go away. But the feeling only intensified. I heard a soft, shuffling sound. It was coming closer. The thing from the radio, the thing from the static, was in my room. It was standing at the foot of my bed. I could feel its gaze on me, a physical weight pressing down on my chest. It leaned over me, and I felt its breath on my face. It smelled of dust and old paper and something else. Something rotten. And then I heard its voice for the first time without a speaker. It was inside my head. It was in my ears. It was everywhere. And it said, "I have been waiting for you to notice me." I don't remember how I got out. I only remember running, barefoot and screaming, into the street, not stopping until I had put miles between me and that apartment. I haven't been back. I never will. That feeling you get, that cold chill, that prickle on your skin when you're alone, listen to it. It's the only warning you'll ever get. If you want to hear more stories about the things that live in the spaces between the noise, then please subscribe. It's just one click, but it's a vote for the truth. It's a statement that you are ready to look into the darkness. Subscribe. Welcome to the shadows. I'll see you there.